Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rachel with Evergreen Certifications. I'm here with Justin Baker. Today we'll be talking about the Certified Veteran and Military Mental Health Professional Certification. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience today, and then we'll hop into some questions?
Sure. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Dr. Justin Baker. I'm a board certified clinical psychologist. I'm also an assistant professor at The Ohio State University within the Psychiatry and Behavioral Health department. I think germane to this topic, I also am a former active duty psychologist who worked primarily with the Marine Corps.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. I know our audience is going to get a wealth of knowledge from you. So let's hop right into our questions. So specifically around the topic of veteran and military mental health, why is it important that professionals get certified and seek knowledge in this area?
Yeah, so I would view this as any cultural competency training. So the veteran group, the active duty military group have their own culture, their own language of ways of communicating, and ways of understanding how life was in the military, how life is as a veteran. So I think just like any other cultural group, we would want to understand and study that so that we can be more nuanced and approachable as clinicians.
Awesome. Um, what specifically with this certification and the training that individuals are going to take for the certification, what are some examples of some knowledge that individuals will gain and benefit from with this product?
Yeah, I really see this training as sort of running the gamut. Again, it assumes, good already a foundation of an understanding of mental health and treating mental health. But I think it's going to introduce topics that are germane and specific to this population, right? So when we think of the OIF or OEF era, like the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, sort of the signature injury was these, like the blast related injuries. So lots of traumatic brain injury, as well as amputation and PTSD. And so I think the training was going to go a lot through the TBI stuff as well as post-traumatic stress. But it's more than that. It's also going to talk about the cultural competency within that, working with moral injury, just the stressors of being in the military, moving family around, the interpersonal dynamics that exist. I think it also helped clear up possibly like stigma or even like stereotypes that we might have of veterans, like all veterans have fired a gun before, or all veterans have gone to combat before, or all veterans whatever, fill in the blank. And to realize it's a pretty heterogeneous group, like most cultures, right? And so understanding there's nuanced differences even within the similarities.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of really key points there. I want to first of all, I think the training is very unique in that it talks about the family aspect that you mentioned as well, right? Because you might be treating a veteran, but then there's all of the family aspects that this training kind of goes into as well, which is a major part of treating this population as well. The second piece I like that you mentioned is that having that base mental health knowledge already. And this certification requires that individuals be fully licensed and out of supervision and practicing independently. So those psychologists, counselors, social workers, things like that. And I think that plays into your point of really having that base knowledge before hopping in to this content and this certification. So let's move on to our next question. The certification, the Veterans and Military Mental Health certification, requires that applicants have already been working with military clients with a military background, as well as taking a clinical exam where they're after the training and after they gain that knowledge, they're taking an exam to assess to make sure they're understanding the dynamics of working with this population. Why do you think those two pieces are so important when someone's applying for the certification?
Yeah, so in the military, we often said, see one, do one, teach one, right? And so it's not enough, at least in my opinion, to just receive content sort of like as a passive learner. It's much more applicable if you've started to work with this population, realize, wow, I don't actually understand all the nuanced differences. That's probably why you're seeking out this certification to begin with. And I think that's great, right? It's because you have a general understanding of what's worked, what's not, what are some of the gaps. The knowledge then can be much more actively applied, right? And then trialed, right? Like and then tested, right? With active patients. And so I think again, you're much more likely to retain if you can think, oh, this would have been so great if I'd had this awareness when I worked with this patient. And then with the next patient you have, you're going to be that much better to connect with that service member or veteran because of the training. And I think the testing and the recertification just goes on to just continuing that. It's sort of like, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of a mentality. And so maintaining that competency, and even though I was former military, the military moves very fast, right? And so I have to do my additional training. The systems change, the language even starts to change, and so I have to keep up with it as well.
Yeah. You hopped right ahead of me with the recertification piece. So I think that is no, you're fine. That's a key piece. I think that's super important here too, is after the first 2 years, we do require that you take 12 additional hours every 2 years in this topic area. And as Justin spoke to, it's really so people maintain that knowledge and stay abreast to the new developing things that are coming out, the research that's coming out, the new information. And so that is a really important piece of this process. The other thing I wanted to touch base on, and I think you made a good point of, is that applying what you've learned. And so for the certification, we allow 2 years from the date of completion of that training to apply for certification. And we do that because we hope that people are going back and taking that knowledge they've learned in the training, putting it to practice, working on things they've learned, and then, coming through and saying, I'm more confident. Now I'm going to take the exam. Now I'm going to apply for the certification. So we really do want people taking that application piece or the learning piece and putting it into practice with their patients as they're going through the process. As we're watching today, I forgot to mention, you'll see a URL at the bottom of your screen, as well as a QR code in the top corner. If you follow those links, they're going to take you to the certification information, and they'll also take you to the link for the training that Justin's been referencing throughout our discussion here. So just either scan or type that in, and you'll be directed right to all of that information. So wrapping up today, why did you feel passionate, Justin, about working with Evergreen to develop this certification, and kind of give us your final thoughts on why people should pursue moving forward with it?
Yeah, so a short story here, but it is relevant. When I first started my training, I actually thought I was going to be a child psychologist, but I had an opportunity to work within the VA healthcare system, and I sort of never looked back. The work I started doing with veterans and the appreciation that the veterans shared with the efforts that we were going through to help reduce their suffering was sort of unparalleled, and that only increased when I actually started working with active duty. And so I really feel called or compelled to ensure that those who are working with this population have as much training in this as possible. And so as I saw this certification program being put together, I really wanted to speak into the content that got put in so that it was relevant. I mean, there beyond just me, there's other people who are either were or current active duty. So you're getting like true content and expert people who are truly experts in this training, because we really want veterans, at least my goal is I wanted veterans and service members to have the best care possible, whether they saw it in a VA or in a private practice setting. So that's really why I think a certification course like this can be extremely helpful. It's because I'm thinking of the end user, which is truly the patient.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for your time today. I know I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and I'm sure our audience will greatly appreciate the time you took to educate them on both the content and the certification. We want to thank our audience. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, just thanks as well. That's all. Yeah.
We want to thank our audience for joining us today. Have a good day.